Hello, welcome to Bridging of Ages. My name is Dan Mendelevitz. Today we're going to talk about how we all age. Let's face it, we all age. It's something we all do. And we've talked a lot about ages on our previous shows, and we're going to take a look at how it affects us and how we react to it. Let's take a look at aging in our times. So everybody's aging. You can't escape it, but you can embrace it. It's an experience that every human gets to experience. It's one of those universal truths. We can fight against it. There's a large anti-aging, they call themselves anti-aging industry, but there's a lot of pushback to that too, because what's wrong with aging? It's my preference to age. The alternative I don't particularly like. So across all cultures, roles, generations, you name it, this journey is the same for all of us. So it really comes down to the choice of how we meet it and how we treat people who are different ages than ourselves. Because if you're a younger person and you're interacting with your older workers and colleagues, you are going to be them someday. It's a good place to learn. So it comes down to that choice. You can age on your own terms, but it takes work because the body changes, the experience increases. So if you are looking at older workers in a negative way, remember, soon enough, you're going to be that person. And it's hard to understand that when you're younger, but you certainly understand it when you're older. You don't want to push us out because we have a lot to offer. So let's just take a look at what's happening in today's world. The world is growing older. So a study by the World Health Organization, they have their longevity economic research study they did in 2025. So 426 million people will be age 80 or older by 2050. That's nearly triple today's number. And we've added more than 20 years to the global life expectancy since the 1960s. That's thanks to health and living standards, better nutrition. So by 2030, 1 in 6 people worldwide will be 60 or older. That's up from 1 in 11 just in 2019. That's not that far back. So the workplace has changed because of this. The demographics we've talked about in previous shows, how that age curve has accelerated, how we are having less kids born and older people are living longer. So we have like 5 generations of people working side by side. That's a first in modern history, and we're still using techniques from 100 years ago in the workplace. In the same study, they found that 24% of the US workforce is 55 or older. That's, a quarter of us. That's up 10% since the mid 1990s. And it's projected to be 57% by 2032. Will be coming from workers over 65. That's an incredible demographic shift. How are you as an organization or a company taking that on? Right now, we have a system that excludes older workers, that doesn't hire them back, that doesn't allow them to make that change from maybe a senior role to a contributor at a different level. And at the same time, we have companies going, oh, we can't find anybody. There's no talent out there. Well, they walk by it every day. They walk by it on the street. They drive by it. They don't see it. So if you look at these numbers, the demographic shift is dramatic. Now, at the same time, we cannot exclude younger workers. They are vital to our workforce. They're vital to our teams. This is why I talk so much about intergenerational teams, because this allows us to make that transformation. It allows us to relearn how to work at a multi-generational level. And as I've talked about on previous shows, remember, the productivity, innovation, and your bottom line all increase when you have an intergenerational team. But we're not structured for that. We don't look at it that way. And we have these structural biases and unconscious biases to older workers. And remember, we all age. It's critical. So let's take a look at the strength of experience. There's sharper judgment. Why sharper judgment? Is that to say that a younger worker doesn't have good judgment? No, that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about what's reflected on experience. Think back to the first time you ever did something, that beginner's mind. Did you even know the questions to ask? You were just learning, and you had to make mistakes and find successes. So a person who's been doing this for a while has decades of pattern recognition that helps your team look for new openings. They've seen those misses. They retain that raw data just from experience. And as I said, you cannot substitute for experience. Knowledge compounds. It's like compound interest. It increases incrementally and builds on itself. As long as you're aware of that and are a lifelong learner, your experienced colleagues can mentor you. They have a more steady, they multiply around you because that becomes your strength. So if you are a younger worker and you're not taking advantage of a mentor, especially a mentor who's open to learning from you, you're not allowing yourself to grow. And what does experience bring? You've seen a lot of stuff, and you've learned that you can take a breath, you can take a pause. You're steadier in a storm because we've navigated those cycles before. We can bring that calm, we can bring a different perspective. And if you are open to that and learning from that, you will learn it quicker and earlier than we did. I love the dynamics and the energy that younger workers bring to my teams. But it always works best when they are aware and willing to learn from those who have experience. And just because we have experience doesn't mean we have all the answers. And one of the things that I and others learn as we've gained more experience is that we don't have all the answers. But one of the things that we learn is how to ask better questions. Let's look at the stories we tell about age. So we look at it from different perspectives. And we have to understand how we look at it. We have these biases that young people don't know what they're doing, and these silly things about saying they don't have a work ethic. And we talk about older people that they've moved on and they can't understand the tech and they don't know what's happening in the new world. And these all, as we've talked about in previous shows, you can go back and take a look. And we've had some wonderful guests who've talked about this. Just need to move that aside. So we get to actually choose what we do next. So it was an interesting device. There's a professor at MIT. He's a longevity scientist, Dr. Joseph Kuglin. And he has what he's called an aging suit. You put this thing on, and it gives you an idea of what things will feel like when you're 30 years older. It's kind of cool. And, things are more weighted down, and to do simple tasks become harder. He does some various things where he might give you some blurrier goggles, weights on your ankles and hands, things that restrict your motion, getting an idea of how you might be a little stiffer and so it gives you an opportunity to understand what it's like for somebody who's a different age for you in a physical way. But remember, those physical things affect us emotionally. But it's kind of a cool suit. If you want to take a look at it, he's got some videos out there. And it gives you that kind of idea. So we have this old story that you're declining, you're slowing down, you're you're too costly to manage. You should be stepping back and not working anymore. You got yesterday's skills. And that's how we talk about older workers a lot. But it gives us excuses for pushing out. We also say they're too expensive, they won't stick around. At the same time, you look at different industries like the tech industry, people tend to work in one place 18 months. So who cares if you're 65 and you'll be around a couple years? So these are all very silly stories, but they're embedded. They're embedded in our minds. They're things that we don't think deeply about. And especially if you haven't experienced it, those things can affect you. So let's look at a news story. What do they really have? Experience and perspective. We've already talked about that. Yet another asset worth investing in. This is like any worker. If we do the training, if we do the investing, it will come back like any investment and grow. Time to contribute, wisdom, but like myself, fresh learning. I'm always open to learning something new. And I can learn from anybody, whether it's a younger colleague or an older colleague or somebody who's a contemporary, because I'm open to that. And I've had very successful intergenerational teams because of that, because they know they respect it. I don't go around trying to be a 20-year-old. I don't expect them to go around and trying to be a 60-year-old. But we can connect and we can build something together. Well, that's pretty cool. So if you're willing to build that new story, you really have an exciting road ahead of you. We've talked about ways in other shows about that: mentoring, reverse mentoring, creating different things together, doing that active listening, all those kind of things. Can you go back and you can take a look and you can see what we've been talking about? And we've had some wonderful guests, and we're going to have some more coming forward that will delve into these things. So let's look how we can embrace age at work. Mentor both ways. If you've seen, we've talked about in previous shows. So you're going to pair a seasoned person with somebody who is newer. But remember, they both have something to offer. That's a vital piece of it. That All mentoring situations, whether you're the mentor or the mentee, and I've been on both sides, are not successful unless you're both learning. This is not just I hand you down the wisdom from the mountaintop. This is we're standing on a level field and we are teaching each other. But if you respect my experience and I respect yours, we have a chance to meld that and build something greater. So we have to build an inclusive culture. We have to hire and promote and value talent across all ages. Does your system do that? A lot of don't. A lot of, especially when they're coming in electronically, these ATS systems automatically remove people from the system. And since most companies are all using the same software, you can't get in anywhere. They automatically exclude people over 50 or certain ethnic groups and things like that. So you need to reassess how you do your intake. Your HR needs to understand what your priorities are. Are you checking with them? Are you hiring and retention solutions doing what you want to do in order to build that intergenerational piece? You need to make the roles flexible enough. Ergonomics for somebody who needs a little different chair or something. Do you have different paths at every stage of the career where people to move up, or do you just have one? There's a classic one where somebody is a wonderful technologist, and the only way to advance is to make them a manager, and they don't become a good manager because you didn't offer a path for them to move up and utilize that incredible skill they have within the organization. And of course, never stop learning. I've talked about being a lifelong learner. You need to invest in reskilling everybody because it's not just the older or the younger workers who need it. Everybody needs it in your organization. And I know we have a tendency to kind of push that aside, but it's vitally important. So if you as a leader are promoting a culture of lifelong learning for your people, they're going to embrace it. But you have to offer how they can do that. And ultimately, find a way to make it more enjoyable for your people. Look at the power of laughter. I try to take aging with a grain of salt. Some things are changing, but I gain wisdom at every step. I don't look at other people of different ages with disdain. I look at it as an opportunity to learn from. But at the same time, I've learned to laugh at myself. So you don't want to forget the power of humor. Sometimes in the heat of battle and at work, we lose track of that. We're trying to get a lot of things done in a hurry, and the pace of business is quite intense. But sometimes we don't take a breath or a pause. And I've talked about the power of the pause to step back and look at what you're doing instead of always pushing forward and exhausting yourself and your workers. So the great thing I found about growing older is now I can laugh at myself. If I got some aches and pains, if something sets me aside, I could now laugh at it. I've learned that those little annoyances can roll off of me sooner, whereas I used to get very angry at them, and they make me a better worker. We've diffused that. And we don't want to be laughing at people's expenses, in the workplace, because that can border on bullying. But we can laugh at something common. We can laugh at how a project kind of went sideways. We can laugh at what some silly things that happen at work. So you don't want to forget to laugh. So if we take these things all together, we all age. It's inevitable. But how do you approach it? How do you look at it? So if you think about it, embrace age at work. Look at ways for people to work together. Build the strength in your intergenerational teams. Never stop learning. And don't forget the power of laughter. Because as long as we can laugh at ourselves, we're going to get through this together. All very important. And as I said, you can see we've talked about this in various aspects on different shows. And we're tying it all together today because we all age. So after a word from our sponsor, we'll come back and we'll look at some action items that you can take in order to implement these ideas about aging in your workplace. We'll be right back. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Bridging of Ages. We're talking about how we all age. So thank you for rejoining us. We are going to talk a little bit about some action items that you can help implement in your organization and with yourself to think about how you're going to be aging. Action item 1. Trade dread for design. So instead of being afraid of your aging or of those aging around you, embrace it. You can plan ahead decades just like as you deliberately plan your year or your month or your week. And I know sometimes it's hard to look ahead and try to figure out what it is, but you have examples all around you. You have positive examples of people who've embraced their age and don't give in to the prejudices and biases that our society puts on it. We have quite a dynamic group, and you can benefit from the experience of that group, and they can teach your younger workers and vice versa. So don't approach it with dread, approach it with design. Look at how you age and how you want to move forward. Action item 2. Value the mix. Your strongest teams are a combination of experience and ages that just span generations. This is intergenerational. This is what we talk about. But do you truly value it, or do you just give it lip service? So as you're planning and going ahead and implementing, value that mix and make it known that you as a leader value it in the organization and your company, and that will help it come to fruition. Action item 3. Keep growing. Skills, relationships, curiosity. They all have no retirement date. As we've talked about, be a lifelong learner. There is so much to learn out there. There's so many wonderful things. There's so many wonderful people doing great stuff. We sometimes get lost in when we're so busy working on things and using busy as a badge as opposed to just being productive. We don't stop and just laugh at ourselves and go, okay, taking myself too seriously. I need to keep growing. I don't know about you, but I'm constantly reading. I'm constantly learning. I'm talking with people who have experiences different from me, and especially those at different ages, because I could always learn from them, but they can also learn from me. The various wisdoms I've gained over the years, I love to discuss. I love to talk about. I love to help with my experience with somebody else who may not have had the same one. But also, I am always open to the learning from them. That's the beauty of it, because you keep growing. I have no plans to stop growing. I have no plans to stop learning. And that keeps my mind active. And that's vitally important. And like I said, we are designing it in now. The demographics tell us that the workplace is going to change whether we like it or not. It's just the way the population is going. People are having less kids and people are living longer. We need to restructure and think about how we go forward so that we can utilize that vast brain power and not waste it. And you know how I've talked about don't waste brain power. So let's take a look at our action items again. Action item 1, for a dread for design. So go forward, design your future. Don't just dread it. Action item 2, value the mix. So intergenerational teams are a strength, not a weakness. And you will find that they will help your bottom line. Action item 3, keep growing. Always be a lifelong learner. Always be open to other views and other ways of doing things. So let's take a look at the tip of the day today. Embrace it. You can't stop the clock, but you can make your years ahead a story worth telling. Stories are incredibly powerful. People have been telling stories since the beginning of humans. So you are aging right now. The only question is how you will meet it. So embrace it. That's the tip I have for you today. This has been Bridging of Ages. My name is Dan Mendelevitz. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can see the QR code in the corner. And you can get a little more insight from my guests and from my shows that expand on the ideas we talked about today. Invest in brain power, fuel brilliance.